You are exhausted, not from working too hard, from caring too much about things that were never yours to carry. You try to change people who don't want to change. You lose sleep over problems you didn't create and cannot fix. You replay conversations, rewrite outcomes, rehearse what you should have said, what they should have done. Your mind is a courtroom where you're both the prosecutor and the defendant, and the verdict never brings peace. Here's the truth. Life becomes suffering the moment you try to control what was never in your control. You cannot control other people's choices. You cannot control how situations unfold. You cannot force the world to bend to your expectations. And every time you try, you lose a piece of yourself, your peace, your clarity, your freedom. This isn't about giving up. It's about waking up. Because there is an ancient practice that has freed minds for thousands of years, a way of moving through life undisturbed by chaos, unburdened by others' choices, untouched by outcomes you cannot dictate. It's called detachment, not coldness, not apathy, not running away. Freedom. This video will teach you how to detach from people who drain you, problems that don't belong to you, and situations that steal your peace. By the end, you'll understand how to reclaim your inner stillness and walk through any storm unshaken. If you're ready to reclaim your peace, type, "I choose peace" in the comments right now. Let that be your declaration. Let's begin. Let's start with what attachment actually looks like in your daily life, because until you see the pattern clearly, you can't break free from it. Attachment shows up the moment you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, checking if someone texted you back, if they liked your message, if they acknowledged your effort. You measure your worth by their response time. You create stories in your head when they don't reply fast enough. You convince yourself something is wrong, and suddenly your entire mood depends on a notification. Attachment shows up when you're lying in bed at night, replaying a conversation from 3 days ago, wondering why they said, what they meant, whether you should have responded differently. Your mind refuses to let it go. You rewrite the script 100 times, but none of those revisions change reality. You're trapped in a mental prison of your own making. Attachment shows up when you try to manage someone else's emotions because you can't stand the discomfort of their unhappiness. You absorb their stress. You take on their problems. You sacrifice your peace trying to fix them, heal them, convince them to make better choices. And when they don't change, you feel betrayed, exhausted, resentful. You gave everything, and it changed nothing. Attachment shows up when you need a specific outcome to feel okay. You need the job. You need them to apologize. You need the situation to resolve exactly how you envisioned it. And when life doesn't comply, when things unfold differently, you spiral into frustration, disappointment, anger. You can't accept what is because you're clinging to what should be. Here's what most people don't realize. Attachment isn't love. It's fear dressed up as care. When you're attached, you're not loving someone freely. You're holding them hostage to your expectations. You're not solving problems. You're drowning in situations that don't require your intervention. You're not living. You're reacting, resisting, trying desperately to control a reality that refuses to be controlled. And the cost? It's enormous. You walk around anxious, overthinking every interaction, every decision, every possibility. Your nervous system is in constant fight-or-flight mode because you've convinced yourself that if you don't control everything, everything will fall apart. So you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, even though most of it was never yours to carry. You become emotionally exhausted because you're investing your energy in people who don't reciprocate. Problems you can't solve, situations you can't change. You pour from an empty cup, wondering why you feel drained, wondering why nothing you do seems to matter. You lose yourself in the process. Your identity becomes tangled with others' approval, others' choices, others' outcomes. You forget who you are beneath all the worry, beneath all the effort, beneath all the attachment. You become a reflection of what you think you need to be instead of who you actually are. And perhaps worst of all, you miss the present moment. You're so consumed by what might happen, what should happen, what didn't happen, that you're never fully here. Life passes you by while you're stuck in your head, wrestling with ghosts. This is the problem. This is the weight of attachment. It doesn't make you more caring. It makes you a prisoner. It doesn't make you more responsible. It makes you a martyr. It doesn't make your life better. It makes your life a battleground where you're fighting wars you were never meant to fight. And until you see this clearly, until you feel the full weight of what attachment costs you, you won't be ready to let go. So let's go deeper. Now let's talk about what happens when you refuse to let go, when you stay attached, when you keep trying to control what cannot be controlled. The cost compounds. First, you lose your relationships, not because you stop caring, but because you care in the wrong way. You love people by suffocating them with expectations. You try to mold them into who you need them to be, instead of accepting who they are. And people feel that. They feel your silent demands, your unspoken contracts, your need for them to change so you can feel okay. And eventually they pull away. Not because they don't love you, but because loving you has become exhausting. Attachment poisons intimacy. It replaces connection with control. It replaces presence with pressure. You think you're being devoted, but what you're actually doing is making your peace conditional on their behavior. And no one wants to be someone else's condition for happiness. Second, you lose your potential. Because while you're obsessing over things outside your control, you're neglecting the things within your control. You could be building something meaningful. You could be developing your skills, nurturing your passions, investing in your growth. But instead, you're stuck in mental loops, replaying scenarios, trying to fix people who don't want fixing, waiting for situations to magically resolve. Your energy is finite. Every ounce you spend on what you cannot change is an ounce stolen from what you could create. Every hour you lose to overthinking is an hour you could have spent becoming the person you're meant to be. Attachment doesn't just drain you, it robs you of your future. Third, you lose your mental health. Anxiety becomes your baseline. Stress becomes your identity. You normalize a state of constant tension because you've forgotten what peace feels like. Your body holds the score: tight shoulders, shallow breathing, clenched jaw, restless sleep. You're living in survival mode, and your nervous system is paying the price. You develop patterns of rumination that carve deeper grooves in your brain with every repetition. The more you obsess, the more your brain learns to obsess. The more you try to control, the more out of control you feel. It becomes a vicious cycle, and breaking it requires more than willpower. It requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to reality. Here's the brutal truth. The tighter you grip, the more you lose. Think about it. When you try to control someone, you push them away. When you obsess over an outcome, you create anxiety that clouds your judgment and sabotages your efforts. When you cling to how things should be, you blind yourself to how things actually are, and you miss opportunities that don't fit your narrow script. Attachment creates a paradox. In your desperate attempt to secure what you want, you guarantee that you'll suffer regardless of the outcome. If you get what you want, you'll immediately fear losing it. If you don't get what you want, you'll feel devastated. Either way, you lose your peace. And here's what you need to understand. This pattern will not magically change. If you don't intervene, if you don't learn a different way, you will continue this cycle for years. maybe for your entire life. You'll keep attracting the same problems, creating the same suffering, wondering why nothing ever feels different. The cost of staying attached is your life itself, not your physical life, but the quality of your existence, the depth of your peace, the freedom of your spirit. So, what's the alternative? The alternative is detachment. And before you misunderstand it, let's be clear about what detachment actually means. Detachment is not indifference. It's not coldness. It's not shutting down emotionally or abandoning the people you love or walking away from your responsibilities. Detachment is freedom from the tyranny of outcomes. It's the ability to care deeply without being destroyed by results. It's the wisdom to distinguish between what's yours to manage and what belongs to life itself. The Stoics had a name for this, the dichotomy of control. It's the foundational principle that transformed ancient minds and continues to liberate modern ones. Here's how it works. There are things within your control: your thoughts, your responses, your effort, your intentions, your character, your choices. These are your domain. These are where your power lives. Then there are things outside your control: other people's choices, their opinions, external outcomes, the past, the future, the weather, the economy, whether someone texts you back. These are not your domain. These are where your power dies. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, who was once a slave and became one of history's wisest teachers, said it simply: "The chief task in life is to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control." When you master this distinction, everything changes. Detachment means you stop wasting energy on what you cannot change and pour it fully into what you can. You stop trying to control the river and learn to navigate it skillfully instead. You stop demanding that reality conform to your preferences and start responding to reality with wisdom, flexibility, and strength. Let's make this practical. How do you actually practice detachment? First, detach from people by releasing your grip on who they should be. Love them as they are, not as you need them to be. Stop trying to change them, fix them, mold them into your ideal version. Your job is not to manage their life. It's to manage your own response to their choices. You can set boundaries. You can communicate your needs. You can choose how much you engage. But you cannot control their decisions, and trying to do so will only create suffering for both of you. Detachment from people doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care without conditions. It means you offer your love freely, not as a transaction that requires them to behave a certain way in return. It means you accept that they are on their own journey, making their own mistakes, learning their own lessons, and that's not yours to control. Second, detach from problems by discerning which ones are actually yours to solve. Not every problem that exists in your orbit belongs to you. Some problems are lessons for others. Some situations require that you step back and let natural consequences unfold. Some issues will resolve themselves without your intervention. Ask yourself, is this my problem to solve, or am I taking it on because I'm uncomfortable with uncertainty? If it's not yours, release it. If it is yours, handle it with clarity, and then let go of the outcome. Do your part with excellence, then surrender the result. Third, detach from situations by accepting what is, instead of clinging to what should be. This is where most people fail. They argue with reality. They resist what's happening because it doesn't match their expectations. And that resistance is the source of all suffering. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." This is not passive resignation. This is active acceptance. This is saying, I will not waste my energy fighting what is. I will use my energy to respond wisely to what is. Detachment gives you back your power because it redirects your focus from what you cannot control to what you can. It frees you from the exhausting work of trying to manage the universe and allows you to focus on managing yourself, your mindset, your reactions, your energy, your choices. And here's the profound truth. When you let go of needing to control everything, you gain control over the one thing that truly matters, your inner state, your peace, your clarity, your freedom. That's where real power lives. Not in controlling the world, but in mastering yourself. So, what does life actually look like when you master detachment? What changes when you finally release your grip on what was never yours to hold? Everything. Imagine waking up without immediately reaching for your phone to check if someone validated you. You wake up in your own peace, grounded in your own center, not dependent on external approval to determine how you feel. Your mood is yours. Your energy is yours. Your morning belongs to you, not to someone else's response time. Imagine moving through your day with a calm, steady presence, even when chaos swirls around you. Problems arise, and instead of spiraling into panic or drowning in overthinking, you assess the situation clearly. You ask, is this within my control? If yes, you handle it with focus and skill. If no, you accept it without resistance and move forward. You don't waste energy arguing with reality. You don't burn yourself out trying to fix what cannot be fixed. You become like water, fluid, adaptable, powerful in its softness. Obstacles appear, and you flow around them. Resistance arises, and you don't fight it head-on. You find another path. You are no longer brittle, rigid, breaking under pressure. You are flexible, resilient, unshaken by storms. Imagine being in a conversation where someone is angry, hurt, or trying to provoke you, and you remain calm. Not because you don't care, but because you've detached from the need to control their emotions or defend yourself against every accusation. You listen. You respond with clarity. You set boundaries if needed, but you don't absorb their chaos. You don't carry their storm into your own sky. This is emotional sovereignty. This is what it feels like to own your inner state instead of outsourcing it to everyone around you. Imagine loving someone deeply, truly, fully, but without the suffocating grip of attachment. You love them freely. You appreciate them exactly as they are. You don't need them to change for you to be okay. You don't make your peace conditional on their choices. You offer your presence, your care, your support, but you don't lose yourself in them. You remain whole. You remain you. This kind of love is rare. It's the kind that doesn't cling or control. It's the kind that says, I care about you, and I also care about myself. I will not sacrifice my peace to manage your life, and I will not demand that you sacrifice yours to manage mine. It's the kind of love that creates space instead of pressure, connection instead of codependency. Imagine looking at a situation that didn't go your way, a rejection, a failure, an unexpected turn, and instead of collapsing into disappointment or bitterness, you pause and say, this is what is. What can I learn? How can I respond? What's the opportunity here? You stop seeing life as something happening to you and start seeing it as something happening for you. Not in a naive, toxic positivity way, but in a wise, mature way that understands that resistance creates suffering and acceptance creates freedom. You begin to trust the process. You begin to trust yourself. You realize that you don't need to control every outcome because you're capable of handling whatever comes. You've built an inner resilience that doesn't depend on external circumstances aligning perfectly. You've cultivated a peace that exists regardless of the weather. And here's the most beautiful part. When you stop trying to control everything, you actually become more effective. Your mind is clearer, your decisions are sharper, your energy is focused. You're no longer scattered across 100 worries. You're present, intentional, powerful. People notice. They feel the shift in you. They're drawn to your calm, your centeredness, your strength. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because you've stopped needing their approval. And that kind of freedom is magnetic. This is the transformation. This is life on the other side of detachment. You walk through the world unburdened. You love without losing yourself. You care without carrying what isn't yours. You engage fully with life while remaining internally untouchable. You become free. So here's where we are. You cannot control other people. You cannot control most situations. You cannot dictate outcomes. And the moment you accept this, truly accept it, you reclaim your power. Detachment is not weakness. It's the ultimate strength. It's choosing peace over control. It's choosing presence over anxiety. It's choosing yourself over the endless, exhausting work of managing a world that was never yours to manage. Start small. Today, notice one thing you're trying to control that isn't yours. Name it. Then consciously release your grip. Feel what happens when you let go. You don't need to fix everyone. You don't need to solve every problem. You don't need to force every outcome. You just need to return to your center, again and again. That's where your peace lives. That's where your freedom waits. Walk through the storm unshaken. You already know how. If you're ready to walk through life unshaken, leave a comment below, I choose peace. And subscribe to the Stoic Mode. Hit that notification bell. This is just the beginning of your transformation. Thank you for being here. Stay centered.